Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission meeting this is our regular meeting for Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. Let's go ahead and start with a call us to order, and we'll start with a roll call. And I would like to welcome Joseph Rangel, who's helping us out this evening. So Joseph.
Quick call order. Commissioner Chapman.
Here.
Chair Coombs.
Here.
Commissioner Ellman.
Here.
Commissioner Fruzen.
Here.
Commissioner Hakobian.
Here.
Commissioner McKenna.
Here.
Commissioner Wenzel.
Here.
Excellent. So we'll go ahead and continue with the flag salute right now. So if everybody could stand for me. Thank you. There we go. The public comment period will be upcoming in a few moments. For community members here in person, please complete a speaker card and hand it to staff to my right. For community members who wish to phone in comments, please call 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. So please proceed. If you haven't turned in a comment card yet, please do that. And we will move on to item C, which is commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. Do we have anybody that needs to report out, would like to report out? Romit, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Just reporting out some community activity. On March 19th, I attended Coffee with a Cop. It was fantastic. Commissioner Ellman was there as well in attendance, and got a great conversation. I had a great conversation with some of the new recruits. I know our community resource officer, Renee Haratunian, was responsible for that, and thank you so much for doing that. It's a great event, great coffee, great donuts. And then on March 3rd, I had a ride-along with Officer Renee Haratunian and Detective Carissa Peltier. Had a really great experience. I'd say it was very entertaining, very comedic. Those two together are absolutely fantastic. And responded to a lot of calls, and I would say that just, the ride-alongs are great. The professionalism, the work that they're doing is fantastic, so I commend them on that. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Any other reporting out? Layla?
Reporting out from the pedestrian or active transportation safety subcommittee. So I went ahead and used our approved data request form and put together a request, and Paul and I checked in on it as well, as he's on the subcommittee. And so I just made a few copies, and I'm realizing now there's a little bit gets cut off, and I can share maybe the actual PDF later. I can send it to Sherry that has the one section got a little long. And so later on I will, when we're agendizing new items, I'd like to bring that up.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I'll just pass these out for now.
Thank you. Anybody else that wants to report out? Paul, go ahead.
I'd just like to give the public notice of the Burbank Police Foundation is hosting a bocce ball tournament on April 13th to raise money for the Matthew Pavelko Scholarship Fund. Obviously, they do great work in the community, and it's something we should be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else Mike, go ahead.
I printed out more copies than yet somehow.
Yesterday, I also attended Coffee with a Cop. It was a great opportunity to meet our two newest officers in Burbank, and I think it was a very successful event.
Thank you. Any other reporting out that folks have? So I wasn't here last month, but I wanted to, Romik, I'm glad you're back and feeling better. Mike Ellman, I want to thank you for facilitating, chairing the meeting last month. My father, I've gotten lots of comments and stuff like that. My father's doing great. I highly recommend regular health checkups. They will absolutely save a life. So thank you all for covering my absence. So with that, if there's no other reporting out, we will move on to item D, which is oral communications. And the in-person comment that we have is from David Donahue. Mr. Donahue, come on
up. Chair Coombs, Commissioners, my name is David Donahue, resident of Burbank and homeowner. Also currently serving as the president of Vision Burbank. A couple things I'm here this evening to do is, one is to extend a compliment and appreciation to the Burbank Police Department. We had a rally in front of City Hall on February the 27th. We were rallying against Metro's planned taking away from 2 lanes on Olive Avenue, which is called side running. So we had about 70 people in front of City Hall, and I was able to communicate with Officer Chapman. He and I interacted very well. We met, we talked about how we were going to conduct ourselves, and there was 0 issues. I want to compliment the police department for acting always professional. For as long as I've done anything with the police department, they've always been great. And we're also looking forward to another equally good interaction on March the 26th. We'll be rallying again in front of City Hall against Metro's any plan for the City Council to agendize or approve dedicated lanes with them. The other part, so second part, as I was doing some research on some of the past commission meetings, there was a report, I believe, done in 2023 by Sergeant Stone. And this happened to be in regards to several things, but one that stuck out, and I'm asking questions about at the commission, is Vision Zero. I understand that with the City of Burbank, they have many things on their agenda. Complete our streets, and Vision Zero is one of them. The question that I have, and I do apologize if you answered it, is how does a presentation by a representative of the police department then get conveyed, which is done to this body, in this chamber, how does it then get passed on to City Council? Is it solely the job of the liaison from council if they're here? Or is it some sort of functionality and methodology that happens? Because as I understand and recall from the recording, the Sergeant Stone's comments in the report reflected that Vision Zero was not necessarily being implemented with the way that people kind of envisioned it to be. You want to slow traffic down so that there's fewer pedestrian and car interactions. City of Los Angeles, again, if I recall correctly, that had not happened. It actually occurred in a greater incident of vehicle and pedestrian interactions. My comment is that if the City of Burbank is going to be taking on Vision Zero, and I believe that they are, with all earnest, is that this type of report is put in front of them. Vision Burbank is very happy to take that recording, dice it down into about 3 minutes and make public comment so we can put it right in front of their face. I hope I don't have to take the hours of time to do that personally. Again, just a question to see how that's going to happen in 2024. Thank you very much for your service and for your time, service to the City of Burbank. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. There are no other comments, folks, for public comment in the audience here. Do we have any public comment on the telephone?
We do not, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have time for commission response to public comments. I'll start all the way over to my left and work my way around. You want to go ahead?
I'm fine, thank you.
Go ahead. I'll go ahead and comment. Thank you for Mr. Donahue for bringing this up. I will need to go back and take a look at some of the details of that last report. I know that we discussed it here at length. Romick, I know that you brought a lot of information to the table when we had talked about this last. The piece that I'm going to do some research on is to find out, because I know that reports often start here and then they are subsequently submitted to City Council. So before we take any action, I think we need to take any action is to find out if that's already been done. So I'll do a little bit of homework on that, and I'll follow up with the department on that as well. Mike?
Well, first, thank you, Mr. Donahue, for attending tonight. That's a good question. I will follow up with my own question is maybe we need a better understanding of the role of our liaisons, how's it determined what is brought by our liaisons to the council and what is not. So I think we need some clarification, but I would hope there's a two-way communications on the subject matter that we're discussing. And it used to be, if I go back in time, council liaisons used to address the police commission, and there was two-way communications between the commission and the liaison, and I believe that was terminated when we had Mayor Rogers.
Thank you, Mike. Any other response?
Well, again, thank you. Great to bring up any topic. I'd also be curious as to, and I think this goes along with what you just said, to the format. Is there a definitive process? Somebody says something, there's a report, It needs further action. How does it get there? Is there a time limit on, a best time frame for when the comment should be presented? Is it the liaison? I would love to know that whole schematic.
Thank you. All right. If no other comments, Mike, you want?
Why not?
Okay.
Yeah, it is a good question. I'm wondering if there is someone here who might be aware of the way our minutes leave from here. Do they go to the city manager's office, all of them from all of the committees and boards? And are they all sent to the council? I don't know if there's someone
Yeah.
there that knows.
So
If not, maybe we might find out for the next
yeah,
meeting.
and I will note that there's a competing meeting this evening, and we will have some of the leadership. We do have leadership here from the Burbank Police Department, and then also including Sherry Nakamura. They're actually at a competing meeting right now. We'll be here later on this evening, and so what we might be able to do, Ray, if it's okay, to possibly ask that of the chief to address that during his comments at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I think that'd be a perfect time, and we can also speak with Ms. Nakamura as well as with regards to how the minutes are transposed and sent to city manager, city council, as well as the role of the liaison in terms of communication with the board.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Paul?
I would just like to say that Councilmember Mullins and Mayor Schultz have both told me that even when they're not here, they either watch live or they watch on tape. So they're definitely aware of what we're going on, and that's their role to communicate forward.
Right.
I'm sure the written word gets up the chain, but I know that they are actively involved.
Yeah, Councilmember Mullins actually reached out to me before this meeting to let me know that she had a conflicting meeting as well, but that she'll be following up. Romick?
First, Mr. Donahue, thank you so much for that comment. I know this is a conversation that was, had a while back at a police commission meeting. And in regards to responding to Vision Burbank, I mean, obviously, this is a very complex system. From the extensive studies that I've done, the reason why I brought it to the police commission was because, every city has a different culture, different community, different resources, and it affects every city differently. In regards to the follow-up with city council and trying to figure out how this would impact our community, I think it's a fantastic idea to see how we can pursue that, Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So with no other comments, we're going to go ahead and move on to item F, which is the approval of minutes from February 21st, 2024. So Paul McKenna is making the motion to approve with Mike Ellman seconding that. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Any opposition? No opposition, and one abstention. I'm abstaining since I was not at the meeting last month, so. Okay. So two abstentions, myself and Roma Kokobian. Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to items of business. We might be getting done before 8. We'll see how this goes. So our first item of business is a presentation and discussion of the Public Records Act process. And we have Records Manager Jennifer Moran. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Great. And Administrative Analyst Lisa Hamoy. Did I pronounce that correctly? Yes, I'm 2 for 2. So Jennifer and Lisa, please feel free to join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Coombs, Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Moran. I am the Records Manager for the Police Department, and with me this evening is Lisa Moy. She's one of our administrative analysts at the Police Department. Tonight, we're just going to give you a brief overview on Public Records Act requests, what they are, and how they come to us at the Police Department. So the Records Bureau is considered the custodian of records for the Police Department. And the Records Bureau is comprised of myself, 3 supervisors, and 10 technicians. We currently have 3 vacancies, so staff processes approximately 315 public records requests each month, which is actually a large number. The more time-consuming complex requests are managed by myself, the 3 supervisors, with the assistance of Lisa. And the remaining staff does the day-to-day requests, the more simpler ones, such as requests for accident reports, police reports, or a call for service from our CAD system. So what the Public Records Act is an act for a request for records or a report, a document that is believed to be in the police department. And so what the Public Record Act intention is for full transparency and accuracy with the government's records. Oh, I apologize. Can we cue the PowerPoint, please? Thank you. Next slide. Oh, I'll do the next slide. Okay, thank you. So what that is basically a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And when a request comes in through the Records Bureau, we determine if it's a record that can be made public, if it's exempt from public disclosure, and if it is not exempt, who can receive it and how much of the record can they receive. And so the rest of the presentation will be done by Lisa. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Ms. Amoy.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lisa Hemway. I'm an administrative analyst with the Burbank Police Department. And going forward, before we continue, I think it's important to note the difference between a PRA and a FOIA request. A PRA is a Public Records Act request that applies to state and local agencies, whereas FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act, and that applies to federal government agencies. This is important to note because we have a lot of people wanting to make records requests, and they will use these two terms synonymously with each other. And given that we are a local agency, we will treat a FOIA request as a PRA. So what is a public record? Every record is a public record until an exemption is identified. Generally speaking, a record is defined as any writing containing information relating to the conduct of the public's business, and this also includes electronic records. It's important to note that with public records requests, they're only becoming more complex, and with that, that comes with the types of records that are requested and their scope. So with the PRA law, that requires us to assist the public in making a focused request. So if we receive a request and it's too broad or it's too vague, then we reach out to the requester and work with them and ask for clarification to narrow the scope of their request. Now, if something has already been determined to be a public record, we are not required to reproduce that record, but rather we refer the requester to the resource or the website where they can find it. We do this all the time with like our daily arrest logs. That's available on our website, as well as if people have questions about our policies and procedures, we would refer them there too. So we're not creating something new or reinventing the wheel. We're pointing them in the right direction. So where do PRA requests come from? We receive a lot of requests at PD from various places. Requests are made at our front counter, via telephone, fax, good old snail mail, email, through the chief's online submissions, and through BEN. That's the Burbank Employee Network, and it's basically the online portal that requests that are submitted to the city clerk's office. They input them there, and it's disseminated to PD or whatever other respective department. So here on the screen, I have two records request forms. The first one is the generic City of Burbank request form found on the city clerk's website. The requester completes it, submits it to them, and then they proceed to disseminate it through BEN to the respective departments. The second form is a PD-specific form that we have that a requester can fill out at our front counter, and record staff will also take requests over the phone and fill this out on their behalf. Going back to BEN, we do receive the bulk of our requests through that portal. Here I have a screenshot of what that portal looks like, and it has some general information like the requester's information, the departments that are assigned. Sometimes it's just PD, other times it's multiple city departments on one request. The most critical information on there is the due date. the status of the request, as well as the comments section. This is important, especially when we are working with other departments, because we can see kind of the chain of events, like the course of action that was taken, any notes that they may have, where we're at with the request, so that way we can complete it in a timely manner. So, common PD requests. We receive a lot of requests from various government agencies. This includes DMV requests for a lot of our DUI reports, requests from immigration, licensing and state boards, as well as insurance requests that can be for car insurance, homeowners insurance, things like that, for traffic collisions, thefts, burglaries, any sort of property damage. They are requesting these types of reports. Additional requests that we receive from members of the public are for crime reports. Typically, these are only released to victims of the crime. Additionally, we do release traffic collision reports, which I will address shortly, and CAD calls for service. More often, we're seeing requests being made for things like body-worn camera footage, photographs, both of which are not releasable unless there's like certain exceptions for them. What's also becoming more common, like non-traditional things, not just police reports or calls for service, but things like financial documents, invoices, agreements, contracts, and more often I'm seeing requests for email correspondences as well. And because there's a whole bunch of different things that are requested, and the requests are coming in from everywhere, we have to source this information from from various places. So we retrieve these records from our CAD and records management system. Some of the reports we have to actually pull out the physical files if they're older reports and we still have them. And we rely heavily on information from other units within the police department, as well as working collaboratively with other city departments as well. So with that comes the release of records and the general rules of redaction. There are two key questions that we ask when it comes to releasing reports and what we are redacting. First, who is requesting the report? And second, what type of report or record is it? With that, generally speaking, we redact any personal identifying information like dates of birth, driver's licenses, things of that nature. Additionally, we're also very careful when it comes to juvenile information being released, as well as anything medical or certain personnel information, which if we were to disclose that would be considered like an invasion of personal privacy. So we have to be very careful with that. I would say arguably the redaction process is the most time-consuming and critical part of the PRA process, because with that we have to carefully review the report and make sure that we are redacting any information that is not up for public disclosure and only releasing information that the requester is entitled to under the law. So sometimes it can be an initial redaction, a second read-through, or even a third read-through for the more complex requests. One important thing to note is the traffic collision reports. We average about 65 reported accidents per month. And this is significant because, as you can see on the screen, there are multiple parties that are involved: a driver, passenger, injured parties. So one report, traffic collision report, can generate multiple public records requests for that record. Additionally, we will release calls for service. Anyone can receive a copy of a call for service with the appropriate redactions made. That's including the personal identifying information, exact locations, and if the caller is not the same as the if the requester is not the same as the caller listed on that call for service, then we are redacting that information as well. So common PD responses to these requests, we do have specific guidelines set forth by the state that we have to abide by. We are required to respond to the requester within 10 calendar days. If it's a request that's more complex or time intensive, then under certain circumstances, we can request a 14-day extension. Just generally speaking, we will either release records with the appropriate redactions made. Sometimes records are purged, or we have no responsive documents, and a lot of times we are denying a request for records, and when it comes down to that, we have to cite very specific government codes and use specific verbiage in that denial letter that we send to the requester. So here on the screen, I have actually a sample response that I did for a records request that I finalized towards the end of January. And this is a prime example of how complex these requests can get, because this was a multi-part request, and B, it's also a good example because our responses, it's never just a cookie cutter or a one-size-fits-all response. It was carefully tailored because of the complexity of the request. With this one in particular, the person was asking for specific information regarding the ICI radio system. And with this request, it was sent over to PD and Fire. I actually ended up taking the lead on this because the requester was mostly concerned with the encryption related to the ICI system, so we took the lead on that. So in this response, it's kind of a conglomerate response where at the beginning, we are releasing information and releasing certain documents. In the same response, we are denying another part of the request and citing the government code that's applicable. We are referring the requester to a publicly available resource for the Broadcastify information, which is online. And then at the very end of this, I am asking for a 14-day extension to review the 2,400 emails that IT came up with and that the person was requesting. So this was a collective effort working closely with not just Fire, but Public Works, IT, and relying heavily on the guidance of the city attorney, just given with the nature of this request. So they were extremely helpful with that. So just with this request alone, it took approximately 1 month to research and review and coordinate with the other city departments and complete the request for the information that the person had asked for. Finally, I just wanted to leave you guys with some statistics really showing how many requests the Records Bureau processes. As Jennifer mentioned, there's multiple records staff working on these requests. You have the 3 records supervisors, a records manager, myself, and 10 technicians that make up the Records Bureau currently, with the technicians helping with some of the simpler requests that come in because of the high volume, and the records supervisors and I tackling the more cumbersome requests. The charts that I have posted here, this basically shows the number of records requests that have been processed by the records supervisors over the past 5 years. Now you can see a small dip in the number of requests in 2020 given the COVID-19 pandemic, but ever since then, the numbers of requests have been trending upwards. And from 2020 to 2023, it was a significant increase, approximately 41% of an increase in the number of requests that the records supervisors are processing. Jennifer mentioned this earlier, that collectively over the past 4 months, the average number of requests that the Records Bureau processed was 315 per month, and that totaled to about 150 hours. And to kind of put that into perspective, a full-time position is 160 hours. So it's taking multiple people to fulfill all of these requests. So it's very time intensive, and it is certainly a collective effort on everybody's parts to fulfill these requests in a timely manner. And with that, thank you for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Some way, thank you, and I think we probably will have a few questions. So who wants to jump in first?
Hi, thank you. You mentioned that there's presently 3 vacancies. What kind of an impact is that having on all these mandates of 10-day, maybe 14 days, and how is that impacting meeting the public requests?
Thank you. There is an impact that we feel in the Records Bureau. That's 3 less people that can assist us with these requests. So it's a little bit of overtime gets factored in. People are working extended hours to make sure that we meet all of our mandated deadlines. Thank you.
Mike, go ahead.
Just like to follow up on that question. How long has it been since you've been at full strength?
Since the Records Bureau has been fully staffed,
Right.
it's been about 7 years. We have a high turnover, and so the police department has an extensive background process. It's difficult to get people to pass a police background. It's a very stringent training program. It's about an 8-month training program. We have many other collateral duties in addition to public records requests. So we're a very busy department, and so people don't always stick around. So we have not been fully staffed in several years.
So it sounds like to get back to full strength is going to be a very difficult proposition.
It will be challenging, yes.
Is there any cost for these requests to the public?
There are minimal costs. The city fee schedule allows us to charge $15 for an accident report, $5 for a crime report, $5 for a call for service. Otherwise, there are no other fees. There are no fees for staff time. Occasionally, someone will ask us to create a report for them, which are crime analysts, or sometimes Lisa will also write a crystal report or a Tableau report, use different platforms to mine the data for us from our systems and create. We're able to charge for that when we need to create a document. Otherwise, time spent gathering, researching, redacting, correspondence, that's all just a part of what we do. There's no fees for that.
It sounds very labor intensive.
It is, as Lisa mentioned, it's quite labor intensive.
It just doesn't seem to be a great scenario where you're down on staff, requests are rising, and they're very labor intensive. Am I missing something?
No, sir, you're not. You've got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll jump in real quick. Curious, you mentioned the immigration. You talked about immigration requests that come in. Can you expand on that at all? Or I'm curious as to what the department is reporting out on and to who in general, not specific, but in general, around these immigration requests.
Sure. So typically immigration, because we won't, if somebody's been arrested, we won't release arrest reports directly to arrestees, but rather the immigration will reach out to us directly. And typically our fax requests are coming from immigration and other like law enforcement and government agencies. They will ask for that report from us directly, and it's typically for somebody just going through the immigration process.
Thank you. And next question I have is, periodically, I know that the chief has mentioned, and periodically there may be, the public might be invited in to review body-worn camera video with one of the officers. I'm curious as to how, does that process come through your office at all, or is that handled by somebody else?
No, that doesn't come through
Okay.
the Records Bureau, no.
The chief had mentioned that periodically there might be a disputed traffic incident or something like that, and there's clear evidence in the body-worn cameras, and he shared with us anecdotally that in the past periodically he may sit down with someone just to kind of clear the air to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I was curious as to how those requests come in and are processed, but it sounds like a separate discussion and presentation from this.
And
Yeah.
usually that's going to be the chief's call.
Okay.
If he wants to meet with somebody regarding some type of request for that meeting with them.
Great. I know it's rare, but I remember.
They
I recall
are
that.
rare.
Thank you. Okay, so I wasn't making it up. I was worried about that. I was curious. Do you know? Do you have a sense? I saw that the data said that there was a 40% jump, 2022 to 2023, in requests. Was there a particular theme related to those requests? Is there any way to explain why there was that increase in the requests?
I mean, it's just been trending upwards since COVID. I don't know if, Jennifer, if you have, if you can expand on that a bit more, perhaps?
There's not really any theme as to
Okay.
what's coming in more. It's just people are more curious. They want to know what the police department's doing, and they ask for.
I think they're going to ask you to use the microphone. Sorry about that.
There's no theme on the additional requests that are coming in or the increase. I think it's just people are very curious as to what police departments are doing and ask us for all kinds of information. There's no theme to it. It's just more people are asking for more things.
Thank you. And last question I've got is, anecdotally, how many of these requests are coming in from the media?
We do get media requests. It's more so from public, or like Lisa mentioned, from licensing agencies, people who have teaching credentials, nursing credentials, real estate licenses, immigration. But we do get media requests for homicide reports, or sometimes for something we've been in the news for recently, and they'll ask us for information. And our lovely PIO, Sergeant Turner over there, will usually work with the media, and if there's something we need to release to them, we'll get that information or that report to them.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep working our way around, Layla.
I could have done this for you, sorry.
Thank you. I just want to say that I knew someone who had put in a request, I think it was last year, and the department, everybody in that department was really helpful and really prompt, and it was a really pleasant process to engage in. So I just want to appreciate that, especially given that you're understaffed, and that you're willing to sort of, after the initial request, work with them to see like, okay, maybe if we get a little more information or this type of thing, we can check again and see and find things. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And then my other question, and I'm not looking for exact numbers, but a little bit to Chairman Coombs' question. Do you have a ballpark, maybe percent of how many requests are coming from Burbank residents versus, a federal agency, or versus the media or things like that? I'm just wondering if there's any breakdown on that.
No, there's no, I don't have a breakdown for that, but we get requests from all over, from not just Burbank residents, for people who are interested in our city. We get requests from people who are out of state. We have bloggers that send mass requests to every agency in LA and Orange County. So it just comes to us from a variety of requesters.
Thank you. Traffic camera footage, is that available, or is that part of your department, or is that somewhere else?
Traffic camera footage, like at an intersection?
Right, almost every intersection of Burbank has got cameras on it now, correct?
Sure, that's actually something that is typically requested through the Traffic Engineering Office through Public Works. So requests can be submitted to the city clerks, and then it will be routed through them, and I believe you can make requests directly with them as well. In terms of like what they ask for when making that request, I don't know, but that can be something that is directly requested through them.
Thank you.
Romit, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for the presentation. My colleagues asked a lot of wonderful questions, which answered a lot of my questions, so thank you guys, and I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We're coming back to you.
Just a question on record retention. How long are they maintained?
Did you want to speak on that? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so the city, as you know, has a records retention schedule. PD has a records retention schedule specific to all of our records. So Public Records Act requests are kept for 2 years. That's the retention on the actual request itself. But depending on the record, every record has its own retention. You know, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, whether it's a traffic accident report. We have probably 65 pages in our retention schedule. We have retention for everything. But specific to the request itself, that would be 2 years.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like one big memory stick.
It is, it is.
Are the members of your area sworn officers?
In terms of the Records Bureau, it's all civilian personnel. It's civilian personnel. Yes.
Does the information that you're releasing, does that, after you've collected it, but before you've given it out, does that go through the city attorney's office or the city manager's office for any reason? Or is it an approval outside of your area?
Typically, no, just for like a standard request. As I mentioned during my presentation, we will refer sometimes with some of the more tricky ones. We will ask for advice and assistance from the city attorney's office, but for just like a simple request, typically no. Unless there's.
And then one last question is, you have to respond within a certain period of time. That response can say, we need to extend our research time a little bit more to develop whatever data they're looking for. That's a possibility. It could go on for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or something like that. Yeah.
Correct, yes. You can do an initial 14-day extension. I know some of the records supervisors have handled requests that have literally taken them months to complete, and it's kind of like the clock starts over. They have to send out these extension letters indicating that, you know, we're still working on it. I will respond to you by X date, and it kind of starts the clock over again. But some requests, we have to do that multiple times, and it can take several months to fulfill just a single request.
You did mention that there are certain restrictions with the PRA. Is it? Which the 3 letters I.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. That is that listed all on the website where you go to look for information about PRAs? Does it also give you a link to these are the reasons why they might? These are the reasons why they might not be released.
So, like in our denial letters that we send out to a requester, if we are denying a request, it will list the specific government code and verbiage, and it's very brief, like a brief description of that government code. But that's something if somebody wanted to look into it further, that would be something publicly available online that they can easily search. But we do provide the code and just a very brief description.
There's not one place where you can go and look at the whole PRA rules and regulations that they have or whatever.
There is one place. It would be all of our code sections. So the government code, the penal code, vehicle code, evidence code, all of the California code sections have reasons in there why we shall release a report or exempt a report from public disclosure. There'd be thousands, so they're not all listed in one place. That's why, as Lisa said, we specifically list in our response to you what applies to your request, and then you can search that online for further information.
You'd asked a little bit before on the anecdotally, is there about how many are the information requests are declined for a PRA reason? Half? 25% maybe?
Probably a little less than half are denied because most things we can release. if someone asks us for a copy of a homicide report, there's certain information that we are required by law to release, but they will not get the full report. They'll get the information such as the date of occurrence, the charge the person was arrested for, the location, the date of arrest, their bail amount, things like that that we're required to release, we will provide, but not the actual report itself. But most things that people ask for, they do get in some form. Perhaps it has some redactions, but they do get something from us, unless we don't have the records anymore. As Lisa mentioned, it could be past retention and it's been purged. Sometimes people ask us for a record that's, say, an example we've had recently, someone was arrested for being drunk in public 20 years ago. That report is long gone. So we don't keep those reports for 20 years, so we just let them know that that's been purged and we don't have anything to give them.
Great, thank you
Thank
for
you.
Your presentation this evening, both of you. You did great.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Romick, did you have a question or? Okay, all right. So with that, Ms. Moran, Ms. Homoy, thank you so much for your presentation this evening. We really appreciate you being with us this evening.
Great, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is presentation and discussion of current recruitment programs and educational efforts, and this is with Sergeant Jonathan Dugas. Sergeant Dugas, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Commission. Can we cue up the PowerPoint? So I'm Jonathan Dugas. I'm the supervisor in charge of personnel and training, which is also included in that is recruitment. We have a lot of good things going on right now in our unit. A lot of good energy. We're making some pretty good strides here, so this is pretty exciting for us, at least. It's been a long time, kind of like this other group here, where we've actually been fully staffed. So we've been short for a long time. So we're looking pretty good here in 2024. So so just to throw some numbers out there, we're slotted for 160 sworn positions. Currently, we're at 147, with 90% of these being male, 10% being female. We're working on this number pretty strong here. We'll get into that here in a second. So in our recruitment pipeline, if you will, we have 31 current people in the application process. It's somewhere in the process, which is a tremendous number of people. And we talk about shortages, we really only have 2 background detectives working on all of this, not to mention all of the other units in the police department that also have to get background checks, all the other people in the city that also need background checks. Our 2 background detectives have to monitor that and manage that as well. So of that 31 people that we have in various stages of hiring in the process, 3 people are currently pending a chief's oral, which is one of the steps, one of the beginning steps. We have 5 applicants that are pretty well into their background. 2 new recruits we just hired. They just started this week. They go to the academy next week, on March 28th. We have 4 recruits currently in the academy, and they're included in that 147. And we have 7 police officers in our current field training program. So there's a lot of moving parts. We like to, so again, there's been a huge surge in the number of current applicants that we're seeing and that we have in the various stages of the background process. And here are some of the things, like in looking back, well, you start to ask, well, why is that? We had a huge push for our website. So we created a website called joinbpd.org back in August of 2022, which made it very easy for people to look up Burbank PD, see that we're hiring, click on there, and then pretty much everything is laid out for them. The exact process, every step of the way, almost hand-holding, if you will, which made it very easy for people to understand. We had a strategic plan for recruitment that we implemented, which included a lot of this stuff that I'm going to start going over here for the rest of this power slide. Management Services was instrumental in helping us to be able to test monthly. So they have to provide bodies for us in order for us to test. So once a month, 2 people from Management Services will come out with us to help us conduct like our physical agility test. Without them, we wouldn't be able to test as often as we are, so we can get more people into our background pipeline. We've also included some hiring incentives, which we believe have drawn people to wanting to come work here. Some of those things are, they've added some bonus time off for laterals and for recruits, like sick and vacation time. They've stacked on top of whatever they would accrue as brand new officers, if you will. We've added a $5,000 signing bonus for anybody who would like to lateral to our agency. That coupled with anybody who internally refers somebody and they actually make it through the process, there's also a referral bonus for that. Part of our recent contract negotiations, we started to get longevity pay, which is helping to retain officers a little bit longer than maybe if they were trying to leave the state or wanted to lateral to a different agency, which doesn't happen too often. We just recently were able to have almost renegotiate our contract mid-contract, which gave pretty much everybody on average about a 10% pay increase to keep up with, the industry standard. And along with that was some other benefits because, once you adjust one piece of the salary, there's a lot of other benefits that are a percentage of the actual salary numbers. In addition to that, we came out with our big social media push. So we started to put our hiring and our recruitment flyers and things like that on all the main social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Over the last few months, we've seen like a 300% increase in traffic coming to joinburbankpd.org ultimately, right? So that is, based on that, has brought in numbers in droves, if you will. We haven't seen double-digit numbers for our physical agility test in a long time. And for like the last 3 months, it's been well over 15, 16, sometimes 20 people coming once a month to come and test, which is huge for us. Some of the other incentives are education incentives. So that obviously comes with a dollar amount. So associate's degree is getting $192 a month. Bachelor's degree is $400. That just recently increased. And for a master's degree, we're up to $495 a month. Along with that, the police department or the city, I guess, is offering a 75% tuition reimbursement for those that want to continue their education. So not only will the city pay for you to go to school, it'll also reflect in your paycheck once you complete your degree. Here's something that's pretty interesting, has not yet gone through yet, but AB 89, which is the Peace Officers Education and Age Conditions Employment Act. So what they are proposing is that going forward, or at some point, they would like all police officers to have college degrees, at least the AA at a minimum. That has not gone into effect yet because they're trying to figure out, well, what kind of degree. They call it a modern policing degree, but nobody can really decide what does that actually mean. And are these colleges able to implement this sort of program so that people can go? But that doesn't look like that'll happen for a little while. So one of the things that we're trying to do is we start to recruit a lot earlier. So we have an Explorer program, which we're going into the high schools and we're recruiting kids who then go through, there's a set curriculum, if you will, that kind of gives these kids like a track inside the police department, right? They get to see all the inner workings of the police department. They have a little mini academy they go through. And I would say the goal is hopefully to get some of those kids, not all of them, but at least some of them, that can then graduate into the cadet program. So then once they graduate high school, they end up in college, and now they are working for the police department in a paid position, right? But doing some of the same things, where they're floating from division to division or filling in gaps or holes where we need extra help. And then obviously from there, once they graduate college, the hope is that then there is some pathway which they can become a full-time police officer. And we do have, a good handful of examples of that happening. And maybe they don't all become police officers, but they have certainly channeled maybe into other places where, like we were saying, Records Bureau is short, dispatch is short, the jail position is short, right? So we've had people funnel into all those various other positions within the police department. So some of the places that we're looking or recruiting from are, a lot of our local junior colleges, College of Canyons being one of them. Our lieutenant, Derek Green, who's actually sits on the advisory committee board for COC and helps develop curriculum in their criminal justice program. A good feeder school for us to try to pull people from. And, all the other various local colleges, Valley College, I think we have a cadet now in the, two actually from there. One in the backgrounds, one we just hired as a cadet. East LA College does a lot of forensics work, so we try to pull people from there. And then obviously Glendale and Pasadena, some of our other local city colleges. But other than that, we are very excited. I mean, all those people in the pipeline is a little bit overwhelming at times, but it's a good problem to have, and we're creating it for ourselves. So other than that, I don't have anything else prepared. Open it up for questions if you guys have any.
Sergeant Dugas, thank you. I just want to ask one quick question. Thank you for clarifying. I love it when a question comes up and then you answer it later on in the presentation. So I'd heard that a number of the folks that were in the pipeline of those are actually part of that 147. Do you have any historical information? There's 31 applicants right now in the pool. Do you have any historical information about like highs and lows of those numbers? I know that there was a significant dip starting in the summer of 2020 and around that, and it was a real challenge nationwide. I'm curious if you can go back into the 2010s, the 20-aughts and prior, if you have any information about how many applications the department was juggling and working with.
Unfortunately, I just got into this position.
Good answer. Good answer.
And not by choice.
Good answer. No, I appreciate that's something that we.
I mean, I've been around that long, so
Yeah.
I just know, just like sitting in roll calls where
Right.
there used to be 18, 20 officers, and now you're sitting there with 8, maybe.
Right.
Right?
And that's sworn officers that are already in. So we know that there's a dip right now in the number of officers in place.
Right.
I'm wondering historically with 31 applicants and with all the different folks in process right now, if you've seen fluctuations in that number. So before they even make it to the roll call.
Yeah, I haven't been around long
Okay.
enough to provide any.
Okay. Thank you.
Educated
Let's open it
answer
up.
on
Romick?
Sergeant Dugas, thank you so much for that presentation. And thank you for that general disclaimer so I can keep my, because I just got into a new
Just in
position.
case.
So just out of curiosity, it's really encouraging to see that hiring has been increasing and, seeing that paradigm shift between before I know struggling to get people to even apply to be police officers. So just out of curiosity, why are they applying? Or like, I'm sure you guys asked like, why do you want to be police officers? So what are the answers that you guys are getting?
The hard part is because we ask them all that, but they're going to give me some answer they read in a book, right? Ultimately, I mean, this is a great career. There's a lot of job security, right? Working in city government in general will take care of you for the rest of your life, as most of you know. I don't know. I just think, the exposure, maybe there's a little bit of some culture shifting a little bit. It was rough in 2019, 2020 for law enforcement in general. I would start to say there is a slow shift coming back, right? Just with the rise in crime and, not enough police officers to be able to address all these sorts of things. and these issues. And maybe people are just seeing that.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate, and thank you so much for that answer. And the second question that I have is, looking at the Explorer program all the way to becoming a sworn officer, I don't know if you have this data, and if you don't, that's okay. But what have you seen as far as success rate, like from someone who becomes an Explorer to all the way to becoming like an actual sworn officer?
Well, I don't deal too much with the Explorers. But, out of a group of 12 or 13, if you can get 2 or 3 of those to actually become cadets, and even then, sometimes they fall off or there's some life changes, and that's okay too, right? Because you get exposed to the inner workings and maybe it's not something you want to do. And that's kind of hard to make that sort of determination for most people at the age of 17, 18, 19 years old. Like I said, we get them into the program, and a lot of times they end up, going left or right into other places in the police department where we also need help. So it's not just a path for becoming a police officer, it's a path for the police department to fill positions in all departments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Paul, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Hakobian, if I may just add a couple of things. I get to sit in some of those interview panels with the chief, and one of the questions that we ask the applicant is, why are you choosing Burbank PD? And a lot of them attribute the community support for the department's reputation amongst other local and statewide law enforcement agencies. It's a very common response. They come and they see how Burbank PD works, and they really, they like what they see, and they like the small community feel. So that could provide some more insight.
Paul, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the Explorer program, I was a police explorer many, many years ago. Officer Turner has actually directed a scout to our troop that was too young for the program, and then we had Renee came to one of our meetings and talked about the program with our scouts. So hopefully that'll build up. On the background investigation, are there any things that would cause someone to be denied that they could be recovered from? For instance, credit rating and things of that nature that time can be improved.
Yeah, I would say yes. A lot of things require some time and distance from when that sort of ill decision-making happened in your life, for lack of other words. You're 20 years old and you do something you probably shouldn't have, and now you're 30, right? You're more than likely not that same person. And that sometimes can be explained, in the way you've changed your life and now you've become somebody else and things like that. But you make poor decisions and now you're applying to be a police department or applying to be a police officer and you're 23 and you just did that last year. It's hard to explain or hard to justify us moving forward with, certain behaviors, if you will.
But one of the things that the chief has discussed multiple times here is the recruiting from the reserves. My son's a reservist, and I print out your flyer, and he takes it with him. And I've had a number of the young Marines come to me and say, I was denied Burbank, I'm applying LA and Sheriff's Department, but for something they did when they were youth. That's not a absolute, that's something that maybe with their military service or anything they can recover from?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I apologize if that was true.
If you have some people, we're still hiring. I'll make sure you get my card and we can talk.
He leaves 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. He'll be bringing flyers with him.
All right.
Yeah, Commissioner McKenna, I think it's important to note that everything's on a case-by-case basis. And obviously, if someone makes a mistake at a young time in their life and they've shown growth and improvement, all that's taken into consideration. But it's on a case-by-case basis.
It's not a blanketed policy. We kind of have to.
I just knew, I remember years ago, I'm looking at LAPD and the credit rating was 2 years, something of that nature. So things of that nature that, sometimes people need to clean up and show some responsibility.
Sure.
I think at one point in time, in one interview I went to there, they said, yeah, if you bounce the check within the last 2 years, leave. And that was just one of their blanket standards. But 25 months later, you can come back. So, and show responsibility, so.
Right, so we don't have any like hard rules. I think you just have to look at the overall picture and, you know, you had a rough patch in your life and you're trying to fix it and clean it up. I mean, that's real life for a lot of people.
Layla, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for being here. So my question kind of relates to something that was one of the earlier slides. You mentioned that I think the department right now, at least for the sworn staff, was 90% male, 10% female. And so I remember in the plan, I think it's the 2023, 2025 plan, there were different targets set out. So maybe hiring target overall, and then maybe some other demographic targets like female officers or other things. So just wondering if you can speak to, you know, where we are, since we're kind of halfway through maybe, right? Or, yeah, where we're at compared to those targets. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there is a push to try to attract more females, I think to police work in general, but, you know, obviously specifically here to the Burbank Police Department. So we're looking at some ideas going forward, maybe pushing into the summer, how we can, you know, we're throwing around ideas like, you know, like I don't want to say a career fair, but something where maybe we can invite females or some sort of Women's Day where maybe all the departments can come out and kind of be like a meet and greet, right? And we could talk to females, help them understand like what the process is, maybe even take them up to the range and we can do some practice physical agility testings and things like that. So we're kind of throwing around those ideas to see how we can attract more females to this industry.
And I don't remember offhand, I apologize, but can you remind us what is the ultimate target for that particular group?
I don't remember the exact number.
Okay, thanks.
There is continuing with that, there's a women's leadership event taking place actually at LA Live on March 30th downtown, and they're using this to recruit for county and other municipalities. So I don't know if Burbank's participating in that, but I just want to throw that out there. That might be one of the many ways to be able to reach out to reach more female candidates. Continuing on the diversity, equity, inclusion piece, the work that I do in the public sector it's challenging because we want to make sure that we're hiring folks that represent the communities that we serve. And so I was doing some work with a group of managers today, and then this something that regularly comes up in the recruitment for the area that I'm at is making sure that we're recruiting folks that are representative of the communities that we serve. I'm curious. You can share this anecdotally, but what are the conversations like when you're involved, when the department's involved in trying to recruit a diverse workforce in the work that you're doing, especially coming out of 2020 and especially around the stigma that's been associated with working with law enforcement? Sure. It looks like we're coming out of that a little bit because the numbers are definitely higher. But I'm curious as to what the conversations are like with prospective candidates when they're looking at what it's like to work in a field, work in a workforce where, one, there's been stigma around working in law enforcement the past few years, and then second, there's stigma about being a person of color working in law enforcement in the past few years. I'm curious if you could share your thoughts on that.
We do have a recruitment team, and the recruitment team is a diverse group of folks. And sometimes based on where the event goes, we might decide some people may be better suited to go to those sorts of events. Overall, I feel since social media touches everyone, it has increased the diversity of people coming into our application pool, if you will. I think it was very beneficial in that, again, we're reaching out further than just in the borders of this city or in our very local area here. So, and the website, I think, also is helping to, reach people that we normally wouldn't have reached before the last few years, right, if you will. So just, and it hasn't really become too much of an open conversation just because we're looking at the application pool and the diversity is there.
Great.
So maybe that's just negated the need for the conversation, but the diversity is coming in.
Great. Well, at least the very least, the need up front, but I'm sure those conversations take place in other places as well. I really appreciate that.
Definitely.
Mike?
Thank you for your presentation. The Explorer program, is there any connection with the Explorer program with the school district?
Not directly.
No. Have you ever looked at or visited Fairfax High, which is the LAPD magnet school for law enforcement?
No.
I suggest maybe somebody could make a visit. There might be an untapped, group of people that might be interested in coming over the hill to Burbank.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how LAPD would feel about me
Yeah.
coming over there and poaching some of their students,
Yeah. Well, maybe there's
but
something
definitely,
that we can learn there.
I
and-
think there's another school in the west part of the valley that also has some LAPD program. They have very wide fingers.
And what would you say the size of the Burbank Explorer program is?
10, 12 kids, maybe? 15?
So the flow kind of would be if you have 15 explorers, let's say they all graduate high school at the same time. What's the historical pattern for going on to cadet?
I wouldn't say enough of them have done that to create an arguable percentage, if you will. Again, like I was mentioning, if you get a couple of them, it helps out tremendously because they've been in the program for a good extended amount of time, right? So their knowledge base is a lot higher coming into ultimately becoming a police officer than people just straight off the street.
Is there ever like an exit interview? Like, why are you deciding to go in a different direction?
And I can only answer since I've been there, right? Because we've lost some kids along the way, if you will, and it's just life changes, right? I got a different job. It's no longer something I want to do. I'm moving. My parents are moving, and so I have to go too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ann or Mike? Go ahead, Ann.
Okay. Hello. I have like 5 questions, but I'll cut
questions.
them
All right.
down, I promise.
Let's go.
I do have a student who I encourage to join the Explorers program,
Okay.
and all they said is that it was excruciatingly painful the first time, the first workout. But I think I also would support promoting it within the schools. Okay, that would be great. Second, how is our incentive program competitive with, I'm sure other cities have their own. Are we up to par?
Yes. So, that was a part of the reason we renegotiated the contract mid-contract year so that we can stay competitive with other agencies. And just like everything else, there's some things they have a little bit more to offer. Some things we have a little bit more to offer. That's why it's up to our job to be really good salesmen.
My last question, when a candidate comes out here and it's really down to the wire, like the pen is right there, they're almost set, how much of a sell can we do on Burbank? I mean, like, is the Rotary invited, or do they get a tour of the city, or just, huh? Oh, sorry.
No, I wouldn't say those sorts of factors matter to them at this point, right? They're just eager to get a job. A lot of them are just eager to get into law enforcement in general. It's just sometimes a function of like who can present the best package for these people. Location matters for a lot of people, things like that. I don't think that sort of thing matters to very brand new people. They just want to get hired.
Great.
Eager.
Thank you.
Mike, do you have any questions?
Yeah, 2 questions. You gave us the numbers of open spots. Is there a continuing aggregation of numbers of people that are like planning to retire within the next year or planning to leave in the next 6 months for some reason or other, that would add to that 147? Or
subtract from it?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Hence why 31 people in the pipeline, we only technically have 13 positions available because you're going to lose some along the way. Even in that 31, we're going to lose half of them to various reasons, other agencies potentially, or they just don't make it through backgrounds. So that's why part of our incentive was to try to increase our applicant pool that'll allow us to be a lot more selective with, who we're hiring. But, I mean, it's hard for me to say because they're not going to come and tell me, hey, I'm retiring in 8 months. You might want to,
Well, you've got job
right?
security.
Sometimes I don't find out about it
until
until they're coming in and turning in all their stuff.
I'm glad the chief has joined us here. There's an organization that does ratings, and I don't know the acronym, it's ECOLA. It does the national rating of the different police departments. And in fact, I think we're very proud of the rating that we get. What I'm wondering is,
Are you talking about Kalia?
probably, it's
Okay.
5 letters, yeah? Or-
Yeah.
Okay. Do they include education as part of their rating?
I'm not familiar with the
Okay.
the rating scale.
It might be something to look into as far as that is a respected rating that we get, and it may be a goal of where we want to go towards with education.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting it.
Okay.
And Paul mentioned some things earlier. Do we get a number of people directly from military? It seems like they have skill sets that would fit within our training.
So a lot of our military folks have come directly as a referral from other military people that we have here, who are still in the reserves and still have a lot of connections to the military. So they do a very good job for us recruiting and bringing people here to our department.
Does the military have a help office where they suggest places you might look for work if you're leaving the military? I don't know of anything
Right,
about it.
yeah, I don't know.
It's not my area.
So the military does have a really active program for folks separating from the military. And they have job fairs for all disciplines, for law enforcement, you name the business, tech, social services, all of that. So anytime there's an opportunity to participate in a job fair, we have. So, but the military does a good job as far as trying to place folks or at least introduce them, whether it's Home Depot or Lowe's. I don't know if you've been to Lowe's, but in the Lowe's in other states, they'll indicate, United States Navy. So they have a really robust program as far as recruiting folks that have separated from the military.
And that impacts maybe half of our people come directly from the military, or way less than that? Okay,
Yeah, it's an opportunity.
great. Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Mike.
your presentation.
Paul, you had another question?
Well, you said that we have an officer or a captain that's on the board of one of the local colleges?
Yes.
Because I know that Seton Hall University, one of the things they did years ago was they introduced the same class in the morning and then in the evening. In case an officer's shift changed, he or she could attend either one of them. And I just thought it might be something worth recommending. But it was specifically a police program, and it started an influx of education for police officers.
Definitely having him on that board gives us an in. We made an announcement via like the head of the criminal justice program, and then they were able to put out to the classes, that we were looking for cadets, and here we come with, 10, 12 different applicants just from that. So we're definitely trying to get our foot into some of these local colleges to make recruiting a little bit more advantageous for us.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to add, we've got Captain Cremens in the audience as well, and I know that over the past few years since I've been on the commission, I've had people in the community reach out to me to ask questions. I've reached out to Captain Cremens, and he's offered personal tours and has started the process. I don't know if that's turned into anything, but the fact that the captain's doing that to help support the recruitment process for the department, I just really appreciate what you're doing there for that. So thank you. Thank you.
Definitely.
Something I neglected to do with the prior items, but I know that we can't go backwards. I wanted to check in with the commission to see if we had any recommendations that we wanted to formally give to either the department or the city council for, related to this item of current recruitment programs and educational efforts.
Chair Combs, I was wondering maybe if you can ask a question in regards to that, maybe
Sure.
from the police department. Is there anything that we can do to assist the department in making a recommendation, in regards to is there anything that you would feel resource-wise that you guys would need that we can talk about, that we can recommend?
I don't have anything right now, but maybe we can circle back and maybe I can, shoot you an email with some ideas once I roundtable this with my group.
Sure.
If that works.
Sure. Great. Okay. Paul?
And I would just think that it seems to be to the people I've spoken to, that they come in and something, I don't know, I'm not the kind of person who takes the word no very easily, but apparently they do. They hear no and they think it's an absolute. So I think maybe some of the things you said about time and showing improvement, or give us a chance to show us who you really are. Maybe entering the cadet program or something of that nature would be profitable, because I've said I've had people that serve with my son approach me and tell me how they were turned down, but 2 years ago, and so it's like a lot has changed since then. And the other thing I will say that this competition is, and I'm not happy with this because they were trying to recruit my son, but very highly paid armed security positions, which are also kind of attractive to them, and we need to kind of give them something better to look forward to.
Thank you.
Yes, I would definitely say this would be a lot more secure, if you will, long-term. But, but again, like we were talking about, everything's a case-by-case basis. So one agency may tell you no. You come here and we're able to work our way through some of these issues that these guys or gals are having.
Specifically Burbank. Reputation being hard. Proceed.
With that, if there's aren't any other comments or recommendations or questions, Sergeant Dugas, I want to thank you for your presentation this evening. Thank you. Our next item up is an update and discussion of encrypted radio communications. Sergeant Sterner, welcome.
Good evening, Commission. How are you?
Good.
If we can go ahead, can we put there we go. So this evening I'm going to be talking about radio encryption, specifically an update. A little bit of a background. In 2020, a director from the DOJ mandated police departments protect personally identifiable information. Information may be related to victims, suspects, or witnesses. This kind of information often includes names, dates of birth, addresses, and phone numbers. Additionally, with the use of publicly available scanners or mobile apps, police radios are also vulnerable to interception by individuals with malicious intent, potentially compromising our operational security and enabling them to evade law enforcement detection. So the issue is twofold. So what has happened since then? In July of 2023, in accordance with the DOJ mandate, the Burbank Police Department converted all radio communications to an encrypted platform. This process of encryption had been in the works for quite a few years and included upgrading all of our police radio equipment. What is radio encryption? Simply stated, it's a way of digitally scrambling our signal, so only the communication center has a key so you can operate it. As a matter of perspective, of the 45 agencies that are in Los Angeles County, and speaking with our comm shop recently, of the 45 agencies that are in LA County, over 40 are encrypted now. Those who aren't are in the process. Also talking about LAPD, it's a significant cost increase, equipment and everything too. We do understand and recognize that members of the media and the public depend on public safety radio transmissions for information about current events, critical incidents occurring in the community. To provide continued access while our primary dispatch communications, while also balancing efforts to protect privacy and the safety of law enforcement personnel, the Burbank Police Department has partnered with Broadcastify. It's an online source for public radio and communication feeds. We will also continue and could still continue to utilize our social media, our Instagram, Facebook, X, and Nextdoor. What's nice about Broadcastify, it's available for free, and it has a mobile app associated with it. There is a paid subscription that gives you access to, I believe it's up to 180 days of our broadcast with the paid subscription. They themselves, they advertise as being the world's largest source of public safety live audio streams. So as now, Burbank PD has been designated as one of its official feeds. Our IT department has set up a computer in our communications center to broadcast BPD's dispatch, our primary channel, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a 15-minute delay. Comparatively, Glendale PD, who also is now encrypted about the same time we did, Pasadena PD, who's actually been encrypted since 2012, they run a service log on their website, which basically ties into their computer-aided dispatch system, and it's available on their website, but that's at least a half an hour, if not longer, a delay, and it just gives you the location, the time, and what the occurrence is. I believe having a 15-minute feed to our live broadcast is much more transparent that way. Going back to the safety of our citizens and the safety of our officers, if you can bear with me here for a little bit, I'm going to go over a few examples of which now these prolific scanner on any kind of mobile phone you can download or scanner app. Some notable cases in 2021, suspects burglarized a local business. The suspects removed, took all the stuff, loaded in a van and fled the location. The officers found that van unoccupied a little bit later. They recovered the stolen property, and there was a radio scanner device located in that van. In 2022, a suspect impersonated a police officer by trying to pull a citizen over using light equipment. The whole car was decked out like a cop car. The suspect was ultimately arrested, and a radio scanner was found in his possession. In 2022, witnesses observed a suspect cutting a catalytic converter. Suspects were later located and taken into custody. A police scanner app was later located on that suspect's phone. Again, in 2022, a traffic stop for vehicle code violations. The suspects were ultimately arrested for conspiracy to commit grand theft, narcotic-related charges, also operating a police scanner app on their mobile phone. So unique, in 2022, officers, while patrol, observed some people loitering in their vehicle next to a convenience store at nighttime hours. During the stop, the officers determined that the occupants were conspiring to commit a robbery of the convenience store. They were both subsequently arrested. A police scanner was located on the vehicle dashboard. Again, giving them, we're already reacting to calls for service. This also gives them another leg up. In 2023, a traffic stop led to a male being arrested for weapons violations and impersonating a police officer. This individual actually had a pistol with him and an actual handheld radio. I believe he worked for a different federal agency. And finally, just this year, we had, if you're familiar, we've talked about bank jugging. Officers were dispatched to a bank jugging vehicle burglary that had just occurred. Officers located the suspect vehicles that fled the scene. Officers, along with the airship, were able to conduct a high-risk traffic stop, take the individuals into custody. They recovered the stolen currency, and again, a police radio scanner was inside the vehicle. Those are just some examples of how these people with malicious intent are using these scanner apps and using these scanners. This is why there's a push for also encryption. And again, we understand transparency, and we believe to provide continued access to our primary dispatch communications while also balancing the efforts to protect the privacy and safety of law enforcement personnel, we believe this is an amenable compromise. I'd be happy to take any questions you have regarding our encryption.
Sergeant Turner, thank you, and I'd like to go ahead and start off. First question I have, you identified notable cases, not all cases, correct?
Correct.
So there's probably more situations where this is similar. Something that I didn't see in the notable cases was when we had a presentation on catalytic converter thefts this last year. There was discussion about how a scanner device or scanner application was used to try to track where law enforcement was, and I think it actually even included blocking off streets so the suspects knew where law enforcement was on the way. So this has been an issue that we've been addressing repeatedly. I know I received an email or a few emails last year. There were some questions and concerns from one individual in the community who had raised concerns about that because they were, and we had talked about this here with a number of officers and a number of folks in leadership around, there's an entertainment value to using the scanners. And to following what's going on with law enforcement, but there's definitely a safety and an operational issue associated with that as well. So I appreciate what you're bringing up here. The piece that I just want to emphasize, and I'd like us to think about, is when we're really asking these questions and exploring this, are folks wanting access for official purposes, or are folks wanting access for entertainment? And I personally have real concerns when we start using our law enforcement services as entertainment. I just wanted to put that out there as we start to ask those questions. Who want to start to my left and Roman?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Coombs. Those are really great points. Sergeant Turner, thank you so much for that presentation. The reason why I agendized this on the, was because obviously safety is a big concern. You know, you don't want to give anyone any intel on where your whereabouts are and how soon you're going to get there, so they can flee away. And I appreciate the department doing that. In regards to the progress of like, what have you guys seen from like before encryption to after encryption, as far as the apprehension of the suspects, and you know if there's any data around that?
It's hard to say, right? Because obviously before encryption, if somebody had the ability to have a scanner app loaded on their phone, chances are we ain't going to catch them, right? They're going to be long gone before we get there. That's the whole point of it. If we're fortunate enough to take an individual into custody and we have reason or consent to search their phone, you know, it happened. The officers are good enough to search the phone and find that scanner app. The scanner itself, some of the older school versions of the police scanners. And we understand it's a long time hobby, and we understand that that people do depend on that for real-time information. We believe this is a true compromise. And oftentimes 15 minutes isn't much to ask, because even what we're dispatched to doesn't always end up being, you know, what it is. So I don't know if I need that broadcast via social media networks. You know, we just had what they call a swatting incident a couple nights ago where it was very, you know, someone with a rifle and some hostages and all this kind of stuff. And by the time the officers get there and the investigation's done, it's nothing. It's a swatting call. It's a crank call. So we're creating hysteria by putting that out on Twitter or anything like that ahead of that time. I myself have responded to calls of fights in progress, mugging, robbery, whatever you want to call it, and it's a group of film students, you know, trying to do a little scene. So we believe it's fair. We think our working with Broadcastify, and I'm sure it has its limitations. I've heard concerns where it's gone down a time or two. You can contact the watch commander. It's like any other piece of, you know, a computer that we have that you got to reboot it or whatever the case is. But I think it's a fair compromise to have.
Paul?
One of the things I think we need to also emphasize is this isn't just us. I think the letter we received today said 14 agencies are all in the same system. Is that correct?
I could tell, I talked to our communication shop. They had their large county meeting of the 45 agencies that are in Los Angeles. Over 40 of them. I think they said they weren't too sure 42 or 43 are encrypted. And those that aren't are in the process of. Statewide, one of the last numbers, I'd have to vet that out, is over 120. It's happening. If you follow the news nationwide, it's going on. Obviously, there's an important, you got to keep people's information private. But again, with the growing access to web applications for scanners, you also have to keep our citizens safe as well as our officers safe.
But I mean, to be on this system, you need to be on this system to communicate with fire and some of the other Verdugo areas. I just wanted to point out one of the need to improve following the 9/11 incident was the lack of communication between agencies.
Yes.
And this, I believe, is an active attempt to correct that.
Yes.
And I think I think that outweighs a 15-minute delay.
And when it comes to natural disasters, fires, earthquakes, things of that nature, fire department, our local fire departments aren't encrypted radios. You know, it's particularly pertains to law enforcement. I also know there's a state senator, Josh Becker from San Mateo. He's introduced a bill. It failed last year in August. He's reintroduced the bill under SB 719 that would require police departments to grant access to real-time radio communications to media representatives or organizations. So obviously, if that bill goes through its process and, you know, we get the word, we'll work with that as well.
Thank you for that. Other comments, questions? Mike?
Paul bumped into something that, just curious, is the fire department as well covered under this DOJ requirement?
Not that I'm aware of. Their radios are not encrypted.
Interesting.
So it's just law enforcement.
Yeah.
Other questions that commissioners have? Romick?
And so just very general, maybe a historical question. I mean, this is just a no-brainer. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. Like, historically, why would they, and maybe Chief, you can chime in, let's get your thoughts too. It's like, I mean, why would anyone want to have this information public anyway? And why was that implemented publicly anyway? Does that make any sense? You know, or when that started, was that something that was started, like, that was always part of the police department? Or was that something that just happened over time, or?
As far as monitoring the police radio? Well, technology for one, and most agencies used a clear broadcast, and a lot of media, most media utilized that, you know, to get to the story or whatever it is to respond to the scene. Yeah, so now time and advancements in technology have created new concerns.
The individual that we received an email from last year is someone who has some limitations in navigating the world. And so this was not just, it wasn't just entertainment. It was a hobby for them and everything. It was a way for them to kind of connect with the larger world. And I know that in talking with Captain Cremens about this last year, there was also discussion about this is a hobby that a lot of people had as young kids, like stamp collecting or like whatever it may be. So I get how there's like a history and a culture that's been around this. And I know that scanner radios, I mean, there's an industry there that that sells all of this equipment as well. So I get all of that. As things change, as things modernize, it makes sense. And we've heard a real strong case, not just from the Burbank Police Department, about why, for safety purposes, it needs to be encrypted. This is coming from the State Department of Justice. This is not a decision that was made by Burbank to implement. This is Burbank and all of the other agencies in LA County following the directives that were provided by the Department of Justice. So the issue is not just why is Burbank doing this, it's why is law enforcement doing this in general. And I just really appreciate, Sergeant Attorney, your information and the information from the department that we've received repeatedly about this matter.
Well, also Burbank this system isn't cutting anybody off. It's simply a 15-minute delay. And if this person you described, a 15-minute delay should have little to no effect on their ability to follow up with what's taking place.
Did I hear correctly that it's also 180 days worth of recordings that you can go back on?
Yeah, I believe you'd have to check with Broadcastify. So the app itself is free. You could log into it right now on your phones, download the app, use your computer, and you could monitor. As long as you have a speaker, you can monitor our broadcast on a delay. I believe if you do the paid subscription, you have access to, like any other subscription, you have access to more, you know, and I think they log up to 180 days of our audio.
Wow. That's more than was available before, unless they had a system to record it themselves in real time. Leila?
Yeah, I just had a question about that system as well. So is that something that, because they are able to charge folks for, you know, more access to things, is that something that they do, does BPD pay them, the department pay them to host the radio on there, or are they just hosting it because then they can charge memberships and that's how they support their system?
I believe they're hosting it so they can charge memberships. I believe there's other options that are out there. Like I said, Glendale and Pasadena, they don't do a live broadcast. Yeah. They do their call service log, which is limited.
So the department doesn't pay them to host it. It's just, they just host it and that's how it is. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, because just in relation, generally, and in relation to the comment that maybe it's gone down a couple times, and just wondering if it's something, we were paying them to provide that service,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
then we may have more of a leeway to say, oh, are things gone down 10 times in the last month, maybe, but if they're just providing the service
Yeah.
and, supporting
it's a
that through
web-based
the memberships,
service,
it's
so-
not really something that necessarily we have as much
Yeah.
leeway to reach out about that necessarily.
Yeah.
Going with that, though, what is the responsibility and cost to the department of monitoring the system? You'd mentioned that when it goes down, that the watch commander has to reboot something. is
Yeah,
what
there's
it
a
sounded
computer, it's literally just that. It's a computer that's set up in our communication center. I went down and looked at it myself. And it just has the way our IT department, our communications department work together, setting it up and putting the feed into the computer, if you will, lack of technical terms. And then the computer stays on. And it's live feed, and it's just constantly, and it's on. So with anything else, if there's an update, but again, that's mediated by making a call into the watch commander's office or comm center that can check on it. And as far as I know, it's been on. Yeah.
I'm just going to offer a little insight on that also, as far as the system going down.
Welcome, Captain Cornelius.
Thank you. So all the watch commanders work for me. I've had a conversation with a few of my watch commanders who have gotten calls about, hey, the system is down. They said that's interesting because I have it on my computer. I'm listening to it right now, and a number of times that's been an operator error on the user end on the other side of the phone, not the hard, or connectivity on the other side of the phone, not a hardware issue for us.
And can you clarify the DOJ requirement for
Yeah.
going over to the other frequency?
So-
we don't confuse the folks?
So the DOJ requirement for encrypting to protect personal identifying information, that is mostly connected to not calls for service, but to us running records checks of people, where we're running somebody by their name, birthday, driver's license number. Historically, we had a separate encrypted channel for that we would take our transmissions over to when we were going to be doing that anyway, because we didn't want to be broadcasting people's personal information out in the clear, and our other channels were in the clear.
Right. Thank you.
So.
Any other questions, folks? Ann?
Yeah, can you clear up bank jugging and its relevance?
Bank jugging is just it's a term used to describe a type of crime where people are essentially surveilling banks, looking for people withdrawing sums of cash, and then following them away to burglarize their car or rob them later.
Okay, thank you.
And presumably that folks with a scanner would be monitoring law enforcement activity in the area to decide, watching both somebody coming out of the bank and making sure that law enforcement wasn't local to be able to commit a crime.
Correct. That to make sure that, or to know if we're being dispatched to an event there, or to know possibly if we're surveilling them. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Correct.
Any other questions for Sergeant Turner or Captain Cornelius while we've got them? We also have this open for discussion. If we have any discussion or recommendations that we want to make on this item?
Chair, if I may, just briefly, we did, for Brown Act compliance and transparency purposes, staff did provide the commissioners with a copy of an email that city staff received earlier this week from My Burbank, addressing some of the concerns that they had with the encryption radio. And in compliance with the Brown Act, we did provide that today to the commissioners, as well as made it available to the public outside of the chambers, and we will be posting that along with the agenda, or on the agenda, for anybody viewing at home as well.
Thank you. Because we didn't receive it before the meeting, it's really hard to make comment on it. So
Sure. Understood.
I'm not inclined to respond to it right now. Okay. Any other comments or recommendations that we have? We really, really appreciate, Sergeant Turner, the thoroughness of not just you, but of the department of addressing this, because I know that this has come up a number of times over the course of the past year. We'll probably continue to get questions about it, and we'll try to address them as they come up, but really appreciate the information that you and the department have provided. Thank you.
Understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item up, this is item number 4. It's discussion and recommendations, if any, to amend the commission's annual dashboard calendar. And I just want to start by saying I appreciate the commission's attempt to take this on last month. I know it was a little stressful, and just totally appreciate being able to hold this over so Romick and I can participate as well. So what we're looking at is this is agenda item number 4, but we're looking specifically at item H on the agenda. to kind of make sure everybody's on the same place. These are, let's see. So we've got let's see, you know what I don't have? I do not have in front of me the dashboard itself. We only have the April item for the dashboard. Thank you. Here it goes. We've got it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and review April moving forward of what we have on the dashboard. And then I'll go back and repeat if we need to, just so folks have it so they know what we're talking about. If you're looking at item H on the agenda, these are items that have been agendized already. And 2 of the items have been specifically agendized for April. 1 we'll discuss. I'm jumping around a little bit, but all the items that are on the agenda have already been agendized. It's just a matter of plugging them in somewhere. That is a separate list from the dashboard that we're looking at. Are we good? Okay, so going through this, April, we have Communications Center Week. And I do have a note on that we'll talk about. Captain Ruiz brought it up before this meeting, and we'll talk about that when we're agendizing items for April. But April's Communications Center Week. May, in conjunction with May is Mental Health Month, it is a mental health update. June is a year in review to take a look at the work of the commission during the prior years, kind of a self-evaluation of sorts. July is school, bike, and traffic safety to coincide with getting ready for the return back to the school year. In August, we elect new officers, and we've traditionally, sometimes we've even had some trainings during the month of August as well. September is our joint meeting with the City Council, which takes place on a City Council evening and not on our regularly scheduled meeting. October is pedestrian safety. November, leading into the holidays, is domestic violence and also gang activity. We've been traditionally dark in December. January, following up on the holiday activity, we review DUI enforcement. We also review the military equipment report and have a discussion on that to help the department prepare for submission of that. In February, we actually have the military equipment community engagement meeting, and we also have a review of homeless engagement to coincide with the homeless count that took place the prior month. And then in March, where we're at right now, is we typically review equity in hiring and advancement. So that's the dashboard that we're using to give us some structure throughout the year. We are required to agenda any item that's on here. We are still required to actually formally agendize it before we go into that meeting, so that way this is just kind of a roadmap for us. And then we have additional items that we typically agendize, where we're typically, just so folks are aware, we're typically looking to agendize 2 to 3 major issues every month, so that way we're able to adequately address them, allow the department time to prepare in advance for those presentations. So that's the dashboard right now. It's important that we open it up so that way we can modify the dashboard if we need to. If we want to add things as standardized items to the dashboard, we can do that as well. This is the time when we would want to do that. Any feedback on the current dashboard? It's the dashboard seen. Mike, go ahead.
I don't think the dashboard really addresses criminal activity.
Okay.
I think at some point there should be a summary, like a year-to-date, of crime. Especially, we're living in an age of retail theft. I almost think that Burbank Police have a substation at the Empire Center. Every time I go there. So it's been in the news a lot. Not necessarily in Burbank, but it's, I just heard today that there's a federal task force now on guns used in retail crime. So I think we have to address somewhere on the dashboard the actual subject of crime in Burbank, how it's happening, where it happens, what's the path forward.
So some of the things that are on the agenda, on the dashboard right now, is there's domestic violence and gang activity, both criminal activities, DUI enforcement also. So those are the major ones right there. The rest are really related to public safety issues that are there. And so there's nothing that precludes us. We could add something, but there's also nothing that precludes us from asking specific questions about specific criminal activity or review of something related to a specific crime-related issue any month of the year.
I agree with you. I mean, specific is important, but I think we also need a summary.
A general summary. It's different from what's on the website?
Well, I think it's on the website, but I think we need to have a presentation.
On the data?
On the data, where we're going, where we've been, a progress report.
Yeah. Part of me wants, and let's open this up for discussion. Part of me wants to push back on that. The reason being is because we want to make sure that we're occupying the city resources and the department's resources for specific things that we're asking about, as opposed to just giving general. Even with the items that are on here, we have to ask a specific question that's related to the presentation that they give. So I'm a little concerned about just occupying them to provide data for data's sake. So I'm wondering if there's something specific that you wanted to explore.
Well, I don't know. I just think that when you go onto social media,
Mhm.
which is vastly incorrect most of the time. It's on?
Yeah, get closer.
Okay. The public has a general sense, sometimes they go way overboard, that things are more serious than they really are. And other times, it's totally incorrect. So I think it's important to, I think our role is to represent the residents of the city, and it's providing information, good, bad, or whatever. But I think just a general report, because that's what makes the headlines. And we don't have to dwell on it, but just where we're at, where we've been, where we're going. Oh, I'm not the chairman.
Thank you for that. Paul, go ahead.
I agree with you 100%, but I think that the chief generally handles that in the final item. Because I do think that if we have a hard and fast structure of 2 items a month, it should be a third one for, I want to say current events, but something that's timely, that comes into the mix. But I do think when you're talking about the current trends and things of that nature, I think that's pretty much what the chief does at the end of every meeting.
Well, I think let's take the subject of catalytic converters. Now, we might have an arrest in this month, and then we won't hear about catalytic converters maybe for another 2 or 3 months when there's another arrest. I think at some point there should be a consolidation of the information and just say, this year we had so many, the peak for catalytic theft was this month, but so-and-so was apprehended, and since that apprehension, it's gone down. I mean, there's got to be some type of reporting so that it's not a one-time event. That
Right.
the public should be able to understand trends or things that are not trending.
Ann, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do think it's a fair question. I mean, crime is on the minds of everybody. And I know that the chief always gives us pertinent updates, but is it a fair question to every month hear, hey, how's crime? Are we seeing it any place? You indicated something about like a substation, or like, is crime going up? How are we doing? What's new? What's the current thinking? I think is a very fair question. Maybe not always a fair, open-ended agenda item, but it is on everybody's minds. And it is ongoing, and it's evolving, and at the holidays it'll be one thing, and in the summer when more people are out, it'll be another thing. So I'm not sure how to address it,
Yeah.
but...
So I actually want to turn to Ray and get your help on this one. Can you review with us briefly the requirements for agendizing an item around the specificity, the timeliness, what needs to be included in an agendized item? Because the recommendation I'm hearing is that we want generally a report on crime every month. I don't know if that meets the specificity requirements.
So it does have to be specific enough to give the public notice of what will be presented. So a general statement of what are the crime statistics for, let's say, the first 6 months of 2024 is probably not going to be specific enough to engage or provide notice to the public to, if they want to be present, to be present. So I think specifying maybe crime categories, maybe seeing trends or asking about trends related to, let's say, DV, we already have that agendized for a future meeting, or
Proposed, not agendized, yeah.
or theft-related offenses. You could address it that way. Maybe ask the chief or the Burbank Police Department to provide trends that they're seeing with regards to daily patrol. Those might be more effective in terms of providing notice to the public. But as a commission, you do have the ability to address topics that are related to the health, safety, and the peace and welfare of the community. So if crime is of a concern for the community, and it sounds like it is, that is something that you're able to agendize, as long as it's specific enough to give notice to the public.
Layla, go ahead.
Just based on that, thank you, and what I'm hearing from people, so would something like maybe quarterly, so it's not, in order to see a trend, right, you can't like report on something every day, right? So maybe quarterly, we ask for, what is that quarter's, like, large category, right? So property crime, violent crime, and then maybe specifically, people are concerned about retail crime, and also maybe it's catalytic converters, maybe it's also the, anything related to, reckless driving and speeding and racing and those kinds of things, like something very specific, narrow things. I don't know, as compared to what, Q1 looked like last year or something like that. So something just very specific, and it's
Right, but I think that list might be too much
too long.
in
No,
terms
I'm
of
just- I'm just like-
specific category. But I get where you're coming from.
yeah,
Violent
just
crimes,
something very
serious
specific.
crimes, property theft related, things like that. If you
Yeah.
want to specify, you could always agendize that. Yes.
So the focus of this agenda item right now is looking at the dashboard. It's a tickler system of sorts to remind us of significant topics that we know that we want to address, but we also want to make sure that we don't forget. So what I'm hearing, Mike, if I'm got this correctly, is you're making a recommendation that we add specific crime reports to the dashboard? Or is the concern that that we want to make sure that we're asking more questions about specific crime issues throughout the year? Okay.
No, I really don't have an answer for that. I just think that, part of our position up here is to provide information to the public.
Agreed.
And so I think instead of waiting for a one-time event where all of a sudden it's now the hot topic, and we should provide timely information to the public, and I think the public is interested in crime, and it could be more general. I remember previous chief, Scott LaChaz, on his readout, he would talk about requests for service, the time it took for a different code. I forgot the codes. But it's a general thing of what happened this period of time, and it doesn't have to go into great detail.
Right.
And I do think that information is available.
So there may be a solution to this as well, and I don't know if, so I just want to be really clear that we're now not talking about something that needs to be on the dashboard. What we're talking about, timely feedback from the department on crime data.
I think, let's just say we have a need to provide the crime data to the public, and the format has not really been decided. What's the best way to do it?
So it kind of to pursue that a little bit, and I'm concerned because this is actually probably going to take us outside of the agendized item. So yank me back if I go too far. So it sounds like something the chief at his discretion has the ability to both add things to the agenda every month if there's a timely or if there's a pressing issue that goes on. Also, because the chief gives an update, the chief may be able to just incorporate that into his report out at the end of the meeting. I'm wondering if that might be what you're describing may be more of an outside discussion because the chief has discretion to add these items in his report. which takes place monthly, or to add agenda items, maybe this is an outside discussion to encourage the chief to do that, or the types of things that you're interested in, as opposed to standardizing it. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that, Mike. Any other comments on the dashboard itself? Are folks finding it useful? I'm all into it, but I wonder if other folks are finding it useful. Seeing some nods.
I think it's important to keep things from falling through the cracks. You know, these are like priorities, but as long as we remain flexible enough to meet the community needs.
If I could comment as well, it seems like I was trying to wrap my head around what was being discussed earlier, and was it like the rigidity of the dashboard that was confusing? Because like I feel like we've always had the opportunity, even though regardless like what the topic is, if something's happened in the community, we've always been able to agendize anything that's been happening. So yeah.
And one of the items we're actually going to address when we agendize future items this evening. Okay. Leila? Okay. All right. If no other comments with that, we'll go ahead and close this piece. If you can hand this back to Sherry for me, I appreciate that. Thank you, Sherry. So the next item that we have up is number 5. This is general announcements by the police chief, brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department. Chief Albanese, welcome. And as you step up there, I just want to say that Captain Ruiz did a fantastic job in your stead until you came in this evening.
He did.
He did.
He did. Okay, thank you. And I do apologize for getting here late, but we had an event at the police department that most of the command staff had to participate in. And it's a great segue as far as to the announcement, and that's the Baker to Vegas relay race, which will be this weekend. So we're very proud of our team. There'll be 20 runners that'll navigate 120 miles. There's a support staff of almost 30 people. There was 68 teams. How many teams? We'll go with 238. 238 times 50 for each team. It's a lot of folks that are going to participate in the race. And our team did well last year. So it was a team meeting. We provided a meal, and it went well. Captain Cremens will be part of the support team, and Captain Cornelius will actually be running the last leg, leg 20. So if we don't do well, we know who to blame. So just a couple more announcements. The Community Academy graduation is Thursday, April 11th. Me at the police department. We have another recruit graduation on April 12th, so April is going to be a busy month. In addition to that, we have the drug take-back scheduled for Saturday, April 27th, and that'll be at the police station. It's behind the station, pretty straightforward. You can just drive up and drop off any items that you want to drop off, no questions asked. So that's pretty much it for announcements. A big deal for our department participating in Baker to Vegas, and we hope they do really well.
Chief, we appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item H, this is introduction of agenda items for future meetings. So I do want to start off, our dashboard for April is Communications Center Week, and we have typically, we've traditionally asked folks from dispatchers from that unit to participate, do a presentation on a specific ask that we have of them. We have a little bit of a problem right now. We had heard in some of the presentations earlier about some of the staffing issues that the department is facing. Captain Ruiz informed me earlier today that the dispatchers we are significantly low on dispatchers, and there's a problem with both preparing a presentation by dispatchers and having dispatchers actually present, because we need them dispatching and working and everything. So the ask has been that we can recognize Dispatchers Communications Center Week, but we've been asked to not have an agendized item where we're asking dispatchers to come and present on any item. So I just wanted folks to be aware of that as we move forward. So we're gonna. Do we have to motion to take something off of the agenda as well? Do we need to do that? We vote to put something on the agenda. Do we have to vote to take something off of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to motion that we remove we remove any presentation. Actually, you know what? Let me back up for a minute. It's not on the agenda because it's on the dashboard. Okay, Thank you for that, Leila. So what we do have agendized for April is there is an update and status of the ad hoc subcommittees, including due dates of their goals. That is already on the agenda. You all took care of that last month. We have a number of future items that we want to look at adding. I'm going to ask that commissioners take a look at item H and look at all of the future items to identify if there's any pressing item. Again, these are agendized items already. It's a matter of either placing it on the agenda or maybe perhaps deciding that we need to take it off of the future agenda items list. There's one there in particular that we have not addressed for over a year. So I'm wondering whether we need to keep that on the hold list or remove that from the list. So should I go down the list of items or do folks have access to that so you can review it? I think everybody's got a copy of it. Okay. So is there any recommendations on those items to, I'm going to start with, are there any recommendations to remove items from that list? The very first one, which is a presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the department's policies, statistics, and outcomes of homeless population engagement, which we're looking under H, under the future items. Oh yeah, the Communication Center Week is not actually formally on the agenda. Yeah, that was on the dashboard. So we already have the update on the ad hoc subcommittees for April. And so it's all the items that are listed as future items. So there's an item there about homeless population engagement, about the city's 2035 general plan, around the zero bail measure and the effect on city of Burbank, update on the Freedom to Walk Act, presentation and discussion of an update on the 2023 to 2020, was it 2025 strategic plan report, or was that a longer, I think, was it 2025? So if it's that, we're in 2024 now. And so I'm not sure if that one needs to stay there. And then presentation on the patrol vehicles, maintenance concerns, future purchases, and electric vehicles. So those are the items. Those are all items that we've agendized, but we haven't put a date next to them for which month. And so I wanted to see if there's anything on that list that we either want to remove from that list or anything that we want to specifically identify from that list for our April meeting. Romick?
I don't have anything specific that I would remove from the list, but in regards to the, with crime being a concern as a zero bail measure and the effect on the city of Burbank
Okay.
for April.
So you want to go ahead and motion
Okay,
that
make a
one?
motion to agendize the zero bail measure and effect on the city of Burbank for the April meeting.
Great. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ann. All in favor? Show of hands. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, so the motion is to add, is to have a presentation, discussion, and recommendations on the zero bail measure and the effect on the city of Burbank. Okay, any other items that folks wanted to move into April? Ann?
Well, I know the homeless count was done. Is that information that's ready? Because as we head into the summer, our homeless population is likely to increase. Does that make April a timely discussion?
I'm always a fan of it, and so to be real specific, the agendized item that we haven't had a date, it's the presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the department's policies, statistics, and outcomes of our homeless population engagement. So that's the agenda item, and do I hear you motioning to add that to April's agenda?
Yes, I make the motion to add to April the item as presented for the presentation and discussion of policies for
Excellent.
our homeless population.
Thank you. So Ann motions that, and it's not a competition, so Paul seconds it, but you have to wait until the motion happens before you second it, okay? All right, there we go. So that's this. We have that as a second item on, or a third item now.
If I may,
yeah.
Chair, we do have a presentation going to City Council, I believe it's April 9th, on the homeless action plan, as well as future plans for unhoused individuals, so within the city. So I think maybe this might be better suited for a May date rather than April.
Actually, I'm glad you're bringing that up. So we've motioned, we've seconded, we're open for some discussion on this. This is also an efficacy issue. The same way there was a question earlier that we'll be researching about how information goes from the police commission to the city council. I'm wondering if it works the other direction as well. I don't know the usefulness of a presentation being made to the city council and then asking for a command performance at the police commission, because we all have access to that city council meeting and can watch it ourselves. We can actually watch it recorded, so we don't even have to watch it live. I don't know if it's a good use of time to ask the department to do a presentation on that if they're already doing it for the city.
I agree, and I think it's going to be a pretty comprehensive report. So that's going to be presented to City Council. So it may not be something that's necessarily needed here at the Police Commission.
Right. So as much as I hate Robert's Rules of Orders, I guess we're going to flex that muscle for a
Do we
moment.
rescind? I
So
rescind my
don't
motion.
have to rescind it yet. We're still on the road going down that path. We're still open for discussion. Is there any other input that commissioners want to make on this item?
I guess, could we just change the item to a discussion and potential recommendations with the understanding that we would all watch the presentation at some point beforehand? Or not, as you would,
Yeah.
but we should watch it?
Yeah.
No?
One of the options that we could do, we could possibly do that, but one of the options that we could also do is have this discussion for future agenda items at a future meeting to determine whether we need to do that or not. Does that make sense? So instead of agendizing something that we may get all the answers from the city council meeting, so as opposed to just generally kind of put a bubble out there to hold for it, maybe hold on and wait, because we also have it on the dashboard as well in the future in case we need to go there. Does that make
Okay, so the
sense?
understanding would be that commissioners would either watch live, attend, or later, and if any one of us or more feels that we should have a discussion and make recommendations, they will raise that
We
as
could
an agenda item.
Right, we could then
in the
agendize
future.
it then
Okay.
and everything.
Okay.
Okay, good question. Thank you for that. Paul?
I agree with your initial assessment that it's our job to report to council, not council's job to report to us. So if it's already on their agenda, it's our job to be informed. And if we have any questions, we can bring it up then. But first objective is to be informed.
Great. So let's try to, if there's no other comments, let's try to flex this muscle and play along with me here. All in favor of agendizing the item for April that was motioned by Ann and seconded by Paul, say aye. All opposed? Nay? Okay. So what we did was we just canceled out the motion. I can still, as much as I hate it, I can still use Robert's Rules of Order. So thank you all for playing along with that. What we can do though is it's still on the proposed future items. So we can revisit this in our April meeting to decide whether we want to agendize it. Thank you, Leila, for that. Thank you all for playing along. Are there any other items that folks wanted to agendize specifically for next month, looking at this list? So right now we have the update on ad hoc subcommittees. We have the zero bail measure. I think that's it. Okay, let's open it up. Are there any new items that folks would like to motion? Let's start with Leila and then we'll go to Mike.
Okay, I would like to motion a discussion and potential approval or action, I don't know what the right word would be, of the data requests that I shared with you all today. So I don't know, just let me know if I need to provide that electronically to Sherry so it can be shared publicly or, in advance of the meeting. And I can, with the commissioners as well, electronically, and
So to make,
assuming we vote to add that to the agenda. But-
so I want to just to clarify the language. We're looking for an update, discussion, and recommendation. I'm sorry, report out, update, discussion, and recommendations on the for the data subcommittee. Because this is coming from a data subcommittee?
No, so
this is not.
It's from the pedestrian or active transportation safety committee, subcommittee.
Okay.
And so it's really just, we had in the past, a lot of subcommittees, the data subcommittee had created this form, which we
Okay.
all reviewed and agreed upon using, and was created in conjunction with the department itself as well. And so
okay.
I've now created our first actual request using
Okay.
the form. So I want to agendize a discussion of that, which is our
Gotcha.
process we laid out, right? And then we all have to agree to submit the data request
So this is
to the department.
this is a report out, discussion, recommendations on the pedestrian safety subcommittee.
On the data request of the
of the
committee.
data request of the
Yeah.
pedestrian safety subcommittee. Sherry, do you got that? Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
So that's the motion. Do we have a second? If you don't second it, she's going to be really upset after we went through all that. Ann is seconding that. Okay, all in favor of agendizing that now full of words? Any opposed to agendizing that item? One in opposition? Any abstentions? All right, that passes. So we will be adding that to the agenda. So that is a third agenda item that we've got for April. Any other? Oh, Mike, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would like to have a presentation by the department May or June on the survey that was completed recently by the department, the online survey.
Okay, so to clarify, what was the name of that survey, Chief?
Just the department-wide survey.
Department-wide
Yeah,
survey.
So, and part of it is that we do it internally, and CALEA for our national accreditation requires that there's a biannual survey. So if we can save that till June, so that they can vet out all the data and have it coiffed up professionally for all.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I will move it for June.
Okay. Is it helpful for June, or is it helpful to put it on the list for a future meeting? Do we want to obligate the department to June?
Yeah, let's put it on the list because
sense?
the person that would coordinate that, it may work out May and/or June, so that gives us some flexibility.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Either month is fine with
Okay,
me.
great. So we'll put it on the list of items for future. We're going to list it as future items so we can revisit it next month. And that will be to clarify, Mike. The motion is for a report out on the department-wide survey.
For, on the results of that survey.
Okay. Report out, discussion, recommendations on the reporting of the department-wide survey. Excellent. Do I have a second? Layla seconds. All in favor? Any opposition? No opposition? Any abstentions? All right, we're good to go. Okay, any other, Ann, go ahead.
And,
Oh, go ahead, Ann, and then Paul.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's the right time to talk about it, but at the meeting, the last month's meeting, we reviewed the driver's safety pamphlet that was put together, and we couldn't move forward on it. We couldn't have discussion because it was out of order. When are we
Okay.
going to discuss that?
So it would need to be, in order to discuss that further, there was actually some really good information from that meeting. So I don't know if there's a need to do it, because it looks like there's a plan to move forward, and you all did a great job discussing it without Romick present, which I thought was pretty good. But we can, so it sounds like, so again, using the formal process, you're making a motion to discuss the safe driving program?
Or where were we at and what happens next? And
Yeah, can I?
Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead,
answer that? I believe that with the driver safety campaign, I mean, thank you again for just without me and James being involved, presenting that. But in regards to the agenda item, there are things that are going to transpire in regards to like presentations to the Burbank Nonprofit Coalition for the driver safety campaign that gain support, et cetera. So if we do agendize something for next month, could it just be a simple update on the driver safety campaign and what that was going to be?
Yeah, here's what I'm going to recommend is we could probably, I'm looking at the minutes from last month that were approved this evening. And this is just to clarify whether we need to agendize it or not. I'm trying not to open it up as a new discussion. The report out in the minutes where the driver safety ad hoc subcommittee created a driver safety brochure and a poster to promote safe driving to the city's younger drivers. The campaign is supported by community partners. Upon purchase of a new vehicle for young drivers, the participating dealerships will provide a brochure. A motion was made by Commissioner McKenna, seconded by Commissioner Chapman, to add the police commissioner as a supporter of the campaign. So from that, it looks like it was discussed. A decision was made.
Yeah.
It's moving forward. I don't know if there's a need to do an
Yeah, so
additional
I'm thinking that
discussion on
we
it, so
can
maybe
just
just
give
an
an
update.
Yeah, update, perfect.
Okay, all right. So that makes, and we don't need to agendize that, because that can be just given in your updates
Yeah,
as we move
absolutely.
forward, as long as they're brief. Okay, thank you for asking the question to clarify that. And again, thank you all for navigating last month. Any other agenda items that folks want to propose? Romick?
With our school traffic safety committee, I know that gang activity in schools has been uptick based on what the superintendent has information provided us. So maybe a report from the police department in regards to gang activity in schools in relation to how the police department has responded to it, or if there's any data around it.
So this actually would be coming back to, Mike, what you were recommending before about a very specific crime-specific issue. So to clarify, you're asking for a report, and I keep on missing the language. I apologize for that. It is the presentation, discussion, and recommendations on school gang activity.
Yeah, school gang activity, and in relation to, I know the Burbank PD does have a presence. They do go to the schools and
Okay.
respond to incidents that do occur, and maybe it's getting some data around that and how that.
Yeah. So just again, it'd be presentation, discussion, and recommendations on current school gang activity data. Period. Chief, is that reasonable
Does that make sense?
for next month?
It is. We do have the joint BUSD City Council session on April. Someone save me here. Second? Yeah.
Will that be included? That data and information will
So
that be included there?
there'll be a discussion. Police department do a presentation on traffic safety issue, crimes on campuses, and the SRO program. So if there was a notable gang activity, that would be addressed. But I don't know if we're going to have that much data that will make a compelling presentation.
So I know I was a little out of order in the process because I don't want to get into a discussion after the motion, but do you want to continue making that, or do we want to, just like the other item, do we want to wait to hear back what happens at city council and go from there? Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a
We
good
can always
idea.
come
Thank
back
you.
to it later on.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Any other agenda items, proposed agenda items for next month? Okay, so with that, Paul, go ahead.
Not for next month, but is Police and Fire Day going to be the 4th or the 11th this year in May?
Probably going to be 11th. It's going to.
The day before Mother's Day?
Yeah.
Okay, the 11th. Then is it too soon to ask for a report on that on the 15th? Just,
It would be an announcement.
okay, just,
It would be in the chief's announcement, so
Great.
there's nothing more than that. And
that's all be necessary, but thank you.
yeah,
And I forgot to mention that Paul was going to give you a heads up that I was going to have to watch you closely after last month's meeting, but you're doing fantastic as far as staying focused when on the agenda item. So fantastic job. I'm proud of you, man. So with that, are there any other proposed agenda items? All right. With that, then, our next meeting date is scheduled for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, 6 p.m. right here in the City Council chamber. And I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.